So Surus and I did a interview recently that I want to mirror on this channel because of its importance. There's a couple of Hammered Out episodes that I'll do this with, but this one in particular I wanted to do a short intro for. I met Shamar in Atlanta while attending a Black Lives Matter march organized by himself, K Peeps, and others. I talked to him a little afterward, and I figured that since Surus and I are both Georgians, getting some info on the specifics in Atlanta with respect to how Black Lives Matter has been handled would be relevant. The interview reveals some insight on protesting in the media from the ground, how Atlanta specifically has responded to these events, and how Atlanta can and should do better in that response. In the opening, we had some technical difficulties, so please sacrifice some RAM sticks for our cause, but I'll start the interview after we had those tech issues resolved. Links to the Youth Coalition for Black Liberation's Instagram and Cashapp will be in the description below. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment with your thoughts, and remember to find a way or make one.
Okay.
First, we can only hear you.
So the
Look
show
at
got
that.
marginally
Oh,
better.
no.
Got it.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna flip and see if I can get the chat working. Cause like it's very broken. Oh wow, everybody's seeing like everybody is seeing how this looks like on my end now.
Yeah, there we go. Now everybody gets to see what all the horrors are.
I'm doing this temporarily just to try desperately to get
You
my
should
chat box.
be able to.
Chat box, please.
There are. Can you hear us now? Yay,
Chat-
we can hear everybody again. Now,
chat
can you
box
still
is
hear us
still
since we've
broken.
moved everything over? Feed your grandma, Cyrus. What?
Feed my grandma.
Gremlins. Sorry, I misread.
Feed your grandma.
What?
Gremlins is grandma.
Ocean, are you okay?
What?
Have you been having a stronk?
Sure. Anyway, as I was saying earlier, there were jokes I was making that completely got missed. And now I'm gonna have to wave this hammer around again and say absurd shit. But it is, I think, Monday. Yes?
Yes-ish.
Okay. Usually we do this on Thursday. Today it's Monday. Doing that again. The delivery is nowhere near as good as what I was saying. It genuinely, but there you fucking go. Oh my god, I'm knocking shit over with my hammer. Okay. Anyway. Welcome to Hammered Out. And the screen just went to something else. What's going on, sir?
I'm just trying to get the chat to work.
How in the world? The chat is always fucking up at the beginning of the show.
I don't understand it. It's
Okay.
always broken.
We're gonna get the technology worked out. Please sacrifice Rams in the chat because there is always technical difficulties. Let's introduce our guests as you're working on the as you're working on the chat, I guess. So
Absolutely.
all right, cool. So I have with us K Peeps and Shamar, who are organizers with the Youth Coalition. Youth
You okay?
Coalition. Words today. Youth Coalition for Black Liberation.
Congratulations.
And I'm gonna go ahead and ask them to introduce themselves and their movement and all that jazz. So Shamar, we'll start with you.
Alrighty, well, hello everyone. My name is Shamar, as he said, and I am considered the director for the Youth Coalition for Black Liberation, which was started during this revolution of 2020. And we're here to really just make sure that, well, our mission statement is to avenge the sufferings of our ancestors through nonviolent means of protest and direct action. So we have targets within the city, and we come up with strategy on how to meet our goals and how to get the attention of those in power.
Right, and we met when I went down to one of y'all's protests, and how many people were at that march? It seemed like it was a few thousand at least. Like,
it had to be a few. We never get like official numbers back from
Right.
our protests, but I can probably assume upwards of like 2,000 to 3,000,
right,
maybe even more.
It looked like more to me.
Yeah.
Because like, usually I've got a pretty decent eye for like where like 100 people is for the work that I do, but I'm looking at that, it was just like it seemed in excess of 5,000 at least for that march. And we started out in MLK Park, and there was a route that went around the city. Where all did we go, and what, and like kind of how did you decide on like where to start, where to end, and how to do all that? And did you bump into issues with police in trying to arrange it or anything like that?
Sure. So our very first protest, we didn't have a route. We didn't have like an input or anything like that. It was really just kind of like an on the fly type of thing. And then we got word of police tactics of guiding protesters to trap points,
Okay.
mostly at Centennial Olympic Park. So just learning from that, we had to know that we had to keep moving, be like water, make sure that we limit police interactions. So for our second protest, we made sure that we had a route. And that particular time, we wanted to make sure that we go through gentrified areas of the city. And we did different like chants, like wake up Midtown, wake up downtown, that sort of thing. But from here on out, we kind of make our route, and we make sure not to share it with anybody. It stays among us, so that we limit agitators, infiltrators, and police tactics.
Okay. So that's why I noticed actually there has been some secrecy about, like, there's the meeting place is announced, but where exactly you're going, where you're winding up is not necessarily a thing. Like I didn't know it was a loop until we wound up back in the same spot.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess talk to us a little bit about like your message and how you're approaching it, and why you're having to approach it in that way.
I'll let Caitlin speak on that. So
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Kay Peeps. I'm also one of the founders, directors of YCBL. Basically, the reason we chose the route we did, or going about the protest the way we did, is because Shamar and I met through school, but our first protest we ever did together, we remembered the environment, we remembered the experience. So we wanted to create an experience where people could come out and set the tone for, is it going to be peaceful? Is this going to be violent? Let's let the people know what they're coming to before they just come out here and say, I want to hold a sign. Because everybody has a lot of passion and energy that they want to let out, and protest is one way to do that. So we make sure we let people know where we start and where we end. The reason we do it this way is just so they kind of have an idea of where we're going, why are we doing this. We make sure we, as Shamar stated earlier, there's police tactics, infiltrators, instigators. We have to make sure that we create an environment where people want to come back and use their voice. Like you said, the first one we did, we had maybe 1,000. Like I said, we never know how many people really come out, but the second protest we had larger numbers, had to be at least 2,000 people. So clearly we were creating a space that people wanted to come back to use their voice, and we still gave them the opportunity to get home safely, because one of the largest protests we had at the time, they had just placed curfew. So as you've seen with some of the videos going viral of people leaving Atlanta and police officers still breaking their car windows and pulling them out their cars, we wanted to give people an opportunity, at the end of our protest, this is over with YCBL, but if you want to stay out past curfew, stay safe, just remember these things. So we wanted to create an environment,
more organization that people can kind of get behind. I think
Right.
we kind of surveyed the land of like our scope or spectrum, if you will, of things, and who our audience is, and what they were looking for, like organization structure and something that they can like follow and get behind.
Right.
I think another thing that I've seen recently, this happened up in Washington. The curfew hadn't actually started for them. They didn't have an official curfew yet. I believe the curfew may have been set to like 8 or something like later. And then, because Aaliyah Kai, who was one of the last guests we had on the show, had this happen up there, where the notification of curfew came across everybody's cell phones 10 minutes before curfew, but no official announcement had been laid out before then. So barely anybody had, like, if you're a protester in the middle of a crowd and there's human bodies around you, the ability for you to get all the way back to your car and get all the way home is like severely cut off. Have you guys experienced any of that? Because I know that's been happening. If it's been happening up in Washington, I imagine it's happening in a few other states as well.
So yes and no. The city of Atlanta Twitter is kind of is good in pushing out their curfews when the curfew decision is made. However, not everyone has Twitter, and the actual alerts to our phones if you had a 404 area code, you would get it. If you had a 678 area code, you most likely wouldn't get it. And then once they actually started everybody getting them, it was like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to the actual curfew.
Okay, and Aliakai just corrected me. He's actually in our chat right now. It was that the curfew notification came out 30 minutes late.
So after the curfew.
Nobody was able to respond to it productively at all. And then, of course, there's the other fun stuff with like tear gas getting banned in that area and then it being used anyway for 3 days. You know, it's qualified immunity, everybody. It's a wonderful thing, apparently.
What advice do you have for protesters showing up, like as far as things to bring, responsibilities to carry with them, or that kind of stuff? What are your thoughts on those?
Well, for an organization like us, the only thing that you would need to bring is yourself, a mask in these times, and snacks and water and things of that nature.
Makes sense.
If you were going to be more so like in a standoff with police type of thing, or not behind an organization who is going to get you back to your starting point, you might want to bring long sleeve clothing. You might want to bring a pair of goggles, a gallon of milk, dark clothing, things to wrap your face around so that your identity is protected. Caitlin, what else do you think?
Yeah, most definitely. That's why knowing the environment and who's leading whatever protest you're at is really imperative to your safety and the safety of others. Because if you are wanting to, use your energy and effort to be right in front of National Guard, police officers, whoever is in your state, you do need to have long clothing. Definitely, I say sneakers, like comfortable shoes for any march or protest. Did you say goggles? I think you did. Some people will wear a face mask, goggles, anything that will protect your skin, your eyes, the most important features of your body. So you pretty much hit it on the nail. Some people
wear no jewelry.
Right.
Nothing
maybe
that
watch,
can be ripped out
it.
in an altercation or anything like that.
Right. And if you do want to go like in a standoff with police type of thing, you need to have like certain important information written on your arm, like an emergency contact, if you're diabetic or anything, that is special to you that somebody needs to know in case you are in trouble or in danger. Write it on your arm, make sure somebody has your location, knows who you are. Just all cover your bases, all types of precautionary protection type of instances, if you will.
Real Lock in the chat just pointed out that you should probably have the number for a bail fund that you are willing to work with on your arm as well.
There were people handing out flyers with that at y'all's protest as well. Do you know about like Atlanta specific organizations that are doing that, or is that especially people are wanting, like, one of the things that I also want to do with this stream is make it so if people are wanting to donate to certain organizations, including yours, or a bailout organization or any of those kind of things, what are the kinds of organizations that you guys have access to that are actually going to be used?
So we actually don't have a specific direct contact to a bail fund organization or anything like that. I do want to say I think it's called like Atlanta Bail Project Fund or something like that. I can get the specific link and get the specific. Sure. Caitlin, do you have?
Yeah, I have the flyer upstairs. I can run and go get it really quickly.
To say, I also happen to have I need to find where I actually set it out, because I actually had a link to the bail fund that I donated to. Rather, I say I donated to the one that I did the fundraiser for. So technically, the one that all of you in the audience donated to. But I've got a link for that one I can grab as well. Though, because of the way that I have the live chat set up right now, I can't actually edit our information in this episode to any great effect, because I'm currently grabbing our live chat from the browser tab that has everything in it, because nothing else would work. The tech gremlins have eaten everything, and there's nothing but cereal remaining.
Here we go.
I might be a little bit out of breath. I sprinted up those steps. Cardio for today. So I can probably take a picture and also type out all the information that's on here. But just to name a few,
I think it's the
for
same
bail,
flyer I got.
that's the same one. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the Atlanta Solidarity Fund. There's information about pro bono representation calls if you need to seek refuge. Yeah,
I just dropped a link to the Atlanta Solidarity Fund in the chat. That is the one that, because I was pulling it up from the National Bail Fund Network directory of all of the different bail funds. That is the one that they had posted for Atlanta that I sent the first payment to. So if you guys in the chat would like to do anything where that's concerned, we wouldn't want to see, especially the two speakers we have on right now, we wouldn't want to have them get pulled into a jail cell tomorrow during a protest and then them not have the ability to get out or even have to pay it on their own dime. That would kind of suck.
Let's get into
Absolutely.
Let's get into a little bit of like about Atlanta's response. How have you guys felt about like Atlanta's response to your protest, to other protests, to the issue in general?
As far as like the community or government?
Well, government is what I was thinking. Yeah. Let's go with community first, though. So, like the Atlanta community, how's the response been for y'all?
The community has been super supportive. We haven't had much pushback or anything like that. People have just really been wanting to know how they can get involved, how they can utilize their skills, and anything that we have planned moving forward that they can attend. So the community has been behind us 100%. And one of our like campaigns, if you will, is we control the narrative. And that's because the government is trying to overtake our narrative. The Atlanta city government has not talked to any community leaders, has not talked to any organizers or anything of that nature, but you have Keisha Lance Bottoms going on public tours on CNN, talking about all the reform that she's doing in Atlanta. And it's like, it's just false, it's like.
And then you've got the lovely, I'm not sure if either of you are familiar with Candace Owens.
Oh yeah, she always likes to address Black people, and we don't talk to her. Like we don't like you. We don't want to,
I'm just gonna say right now. So Ocean, you mentioned that many of these would probably happen during the course of the stream. I think we can go ahead and call her the first bootlicker of the stream.
She came on here.
No, she has not come on here, but her 18-minute video response to the George Floyd situation. Where she basically tried to go, well, look, this guy was just a criminal. I'm going to be doing a full-on response to that here in a couple of days once I have a chance to actually sit down and analyze it. But yeah, no. When you mentioned just puppets going on the media networks without actually responding to organizers, my first thought was, oh yeah, that's right, she does exist.
So, for those not aware, Keisha Lance Bottoms is the mayor of Atlanta. What about her response specifically has gotten you? Like, because you said that she's going around and saying things that just aren't true, and she's also not meeting with community leaders at all. She's not communicating. I guess go a little bit more into that.
Sorry.
And we
no, now we know what's up.
Right. So essentially, we want to have a meeting with Keisha Lance Bottoms. We want her to know that adding over $5 million to the police budget is just not okay. I was on the call today of the budget meeting with her and a couple of council members. And those council members were holding her feet to the fire, telling her that she's not communicating with anybody, that she hasn't talked to even the council members, hasn't talked to community leaders, hasn't been in the streets. And one council member told her that, it's really the 18 to 30-year-olds who are out here wanting their voice to be heard. And she really just kind of dismissed that in a way to say that she talked to her mother, and that there are other generations that have it was like she said there's other generations that have viewpoints, and that the young people's voice is just amplified with social media, and that in itself just tells you how out of touch that she is.
Is that an excuse not to listen to younger voices though? Like, because I think that the response to that would be to say what she's done in order to listen to younger voices, other than, I guess, what is she doing? She's scrolling through Twitter or something like that, or what's going on? Like,
she said that they have a task force and that the youngest member was 17. That's all she gave us.
Oh, helpful. Right. Okay. As far as okay, well, and she's also advocating for raising the budget to the police department as
For
well
the police officers.
in the midst of this defund the police conversation. Responding to that by actually raising the budget, rather not keeping it the same, but raising it.
You know, I just think that it's just so sad. It's just so sad that some police might have to chip in 1% of their paycheck to afford their grenade launchers. I just think it's so, you know, teachers don't deserve that money at all. Like, they may have to buy their own chalk.
Hello.
They may have to buy their own chalk and crayons and glue, and I'm fairly certain that the mayor of Georgia is sniffing a little bit of that, but it's fine. As long as our boys in blue can continue to put the choker hold on people without any actual resistance, that's, you know what? It's fine. Remember,
It's too real, sir.
it costs the same amount. So I forget who did this, but somebody ran the numbers. It costs the same amount to put a police officer in full riot gear as it does to keep an EMT in disposable PPE for 3 months.
Yeah, that's what the thing is. We're talking about the difference between the provisions that are provided to the police
It's more important
and
to
EMTs.
It's more important to step on your community than it is for health care. You know what? In conservative Ameristan. Anyways, sorry.
We also know that she hasn't been talking to community organizations like ourselves, and there's many other organizations out there. YCBL is just one, and we try to, I know a lot of organizations like ourselves, we have all been trying to connect with other organizations so we can come up with demands about, this is where it gets kind of, you can look at it in two pathways. Some
Sure.
people want to do reformation and some people want to abolish. So making sure that a lot of these community organizations are on the same page before we go to, if one of us, anybody can get in contact with her is vital, number one. And also I got news that she's apparently, Mayor Bottoms is gonna have a business meeting with Black-owned business owners in Atlanta, but she doesn't have the time to meet with us. And people have been reaching out to her for at least 2 weeks now, just asking if she can meet with community organizers, and we've heard nothing.
Like even just like a town hall of some sort, or meeting in community organized. Like,
And that could be the least that she does as a town hall.
Right.
Like that's the
Right.
least. She was on that CNN town hall last night
That doesn't make
she's doing
any
a
sense.
town hall, but she can't do a town hall with Atlantans.
with the right, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those who, people in my chat know this. Ocean knows this. I'm gonna let you guys know this right now. Politically, I'm fairly left. So I'm resisting.
Let them know ahead of time. We're probably more left than they are.
I'm resisting. I'm resisting the urge. I'm resisting the urge to just go on a diatribe about the difference between serving citizenry and capital right now. That's
No, that's exactly what she's doing. She's serving the Democratic elites, and it's really pissing me off, to say the very least.
Right.
Yep. There's a whole conversation. I'm not getting into the whole conversation because that is not the purpose of this stream.
So
But
saying in this chat, Cirrus will feed you bread. It isn't. The bread pill will come out. It'll be a whole thing.
There's a whole conversation about how, in all technicality, like we have a democracy, technically, but if most of your major decisions can be handled by capital lobbyists, by people who can get politicians into their pockets, even though we technically have a democracy, it's controlled mainly by CEOs, which means we have kind of like a mask-on oligarchy type of deal as opposed to a true democracy. There's a whole conversation about you not really being able to reform something like that. But that's...
And it begins to get difficult sometimes, or I've noticed how you separate your own personal beliefs with making an organization, creating demands with other community organizations, because I believe I honestly at this point, if we abolish everything and start over, fine by me. Regardless if it's rioting, starting fires, the system, in my opinion, the system was set up for not people who look like us.
Well,
that's
correct.
Where root of the problem is.
the origins, if memory serves, the origins of the police officers that we have, at least here in the South, the original
Slave
purpose
patrol.
was to round up slaves. They were the slave patrol.
Right.
Another problem we have right now is here in the States. There's 35 states where a police officer can legally rape a detainee because Shamar, you look surprised. So
I hear new shit every day.
So here's the reason for, and you can look this up. So the reason this happens is
it is phrased as have sex with somebody under
it is have sex with a detainee. That is the legal
detainee.
phrasing.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So would you agree that a police officer who has detained somebody is in a very imbalanced position of power? The power is fully in the police officer's court. Okay. Absolutely. Would you also agree that if there is a gross imbalance of power, there is no way to actually determine if consent has been reached by the powerless party?
Right.
If it is impossible to find out if consent has been reached, how can consensual sex between a police officer and a detainee happen? Well, there's in only 15 of our states do we actually classify a police officer to detainee rape in any case. In 35 states, it is not considered rape and will not be considered rape. So whenever somebody says that, and because of the legal phrasing, there are people who will go, well, no, police officers can't rape. It's just this. And it's like, no, that's, you kicked the can down the road. This is what that is.
It's the same problem, right?
Not another issue that we run into because K Peeps brought up. I know I'm going on a diatribe. I am so sorry. But K Peeps brought up.
I'll hit you with the hammer soon.
The need to potentially fully reform as opposed to restructure what's currently there, just like dismantle and bring something else in. One of the reasons that I kind of side with that, at least in the long term, I don't think it's a good short term, but I think it's a good long term thing to do, is just slowly dismantle everything and build it back up. Right now, the Supreme Court has ruled, and they've ruled it twice. They reaffirmed the rule in 2018, so this is, again, recent. Police do not actually have to defend citizens. Police have no onus to serve and protect citizens. They have to serve and protect property. I'm not going to go on a leftist diatribe, I fucking swear.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm not going to talk about private means of production. I'm not going to do it. But what I am going to say is that if the police can hurt your citizens and not get in trouble for it because of qualified immunity, if there are 35 states where they can rape a citizen and nothing happens, it's not considered rape. If a police officer can violate the Geneva Convention solely on the purpose that there is not actually a declared war, but they can do all the things like destroying water supplies, tear gas, false surrender, all
He's
things.
been wanting to do this diatribe.
All things that they've been able to do. It's at some point you have to go, well, hold on. They're able to do all these things because of a system that is in place that allows them as police officers, the legal name police officers, to do this. If we keep anything and call it police officers, they have all those legal protections and all those legal onuses. That never goes away because of the way the way our legal system is set up. Everything is set up on a system called precedent. If you have set a precedent for something,
so if you do a strong reform, you're still going to be subject to that Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah, the legal precedent.
If you're, as long as you're still calling it police officer, which is a good argument in favor of abolishment.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're
write that down.
Right. Let me take notes. Look, at this point, I'm taking notes from the podcast because.
But yeah, it's like if you abolish and replace, then you're gonna be calling it something other than police officers, so you don't have any of those legal ramifications. You're starting from the ground up, and you're saying what is community safety? What is the kind of law enforcement
should
that you
police
want to build?
be responding for mental health wellness calls?
No.
Absolutely.
No.
Talking with some friends of mine a couple nights ago, it's like if it becomes a point now where if you call the police, you're bringing a guy with a gun into the situation. Does the situation that you're calling the police for need a guy with a gun? And does it need a guy with a gun that doesn't
that is not trained in this
situation? That may not be trained in the situation that you're being called into. Like in the case of you're in a life-threatening situation, maybe it's reasonable to call in the guy with the gun at that point. But if you're dealing with something that is more of a delicate situation, that somebody new showing up may not be able to get all the facts very quickly or easily, suddenly it becomes a huge risk to call in the cops.
Right.
So yeah, which leads us to, I think, what's happened in Atlanta recently, in
I was
which
just about to say that
is
directly
that-
relates to Wendy's.
right. So let's go ahead and go through what happened there. That can be
Like-
Shamar or K-Peeps or whoever.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, Shamar, did you want to go or?
No, go ahead. You're good.
Okay. Well, maybe you might have to fill in some of the holes just for me a little bit. At this point, for my mental and emotional health, I had to stop watching the videos all the way through towards the end. So I only watched the first couple. I want to give that disclaimer if anybody has more information about it, just so they know what point of view I'm speaking from. But it just kind of, it leaves you with an eerie feeling to know that somebody called the police officers in a situation where this man was sleeping in his car, not bothering anybody, not being, a disturbance to the public, nothing of the matter, right? And they're asking him questions. I think that the video was at least
There's 40
10
minutes of video
long,
that they released.
Okay, 40 minutes of video. That's what I thought. I was going to say 30, but I was like, I didn't want to jump because I didn't watch the whole thing. So, you've been talking to this man for 20, 30 minutes now. You've checked his person, make sure he has nothing dangerous on him, like weapons, whatever, guns. And to know that at the end of the video, and within the state of Georgia, it is legal to, I don't want to say, if you feel like I don't remember the specific law, but basically it's legal for police officers to...
It's legal for them to shoot if they feel that their life is in danger or if
They're
other
threatened.
people's lives are in danger. Yeah, it's serious
Thank
bodily
you.
harm or life in danger.
Yes. And it's just for somebody to be turned the opposite direction and you still feel threatened, even though you can see the person in position, logically, it's not adding up to me to where you felt the need to pull out your gun. So I'll let you fill in the rest, but that's just the blanketness of the story.
I actually have the story pulled up right now.
I'll go through a little bit because I watched the videos a while ago. That what happened was they patted him down so they knew he didn't have a weapon. He took a breathalyzer test and they did a field sobriety test. The breathalyzer test came out at 1.08. So they proceeded to arrest him for DUI. And then he resisted. 2 tasers, I think it was twice, were discharged, and then the tasers didn't seem to affect him, and then he's running in possession of one of the tasers, and the cops chase. He turns around and fires a taser back at the cops, and the cops return with gunfire. There's a problem with this. It's a very obvious that it's a bad shooting at this point. They'd frisked him.
Escalation
He didn't have any
theory of
weapon on him.
violence.
Right. They'd frisked him. He didn't have any weapons on him. So they knew that he didn't have anything that could cause serious bodily harm or danger to one's life. Now, the question is whether or not a taser is worth that escalation. Cops have made the argument over and over again that tasers are not a risk, that they do not cause serious bodily harm. So either...
Except that we have there are instances where tasers have killed people because I'm an
regardless, because all that's irrelevant at the end of the day. Because like the reality of whether or not tasers cause serious bodily harm becomes irrelevant because the argument is made by cops that they're not.
That they're not.
So, if
It's
that
not
understanding,
that they're wrong,
right? They are wrong, ish. But in whatever the case. Him having a taser and then shooting back at the cop is not justification for serious bodily harm or threat to anybody's life. He's not. There's no reason to actually pull a gun and shoot. So this is definitely a bad shot. You're not allowed to shoot a running suspect in Georgia. It's not a thing.
It doesn't matter that he took a taser.
No.
Not to mention, so again, this is escalation theory of violence. If you fire a taser at somebody and then you're suddenly surprised when they take that taser away from you, nobody taught you de-escalation.
Right.
Fucking nobody.
Right.
Right.
And that
So-
was my point of all this, like back and forth on online, is that from the start, it just seems like these police were not trained correctly. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's just, it should not have escalated from that. You know,
Right.
you talk to him for 20 minutes, and my view is whatever the fucking law is, feed the man and let him go home. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
he was obviously in the Wendy's parking lot to eat, to get something to eat, to go home. You know, and I didn't watch the full video, but from the video that I saw, he was offering the police alternatives to, you know, being arrested,
was.
basically.
He was saying,
And-
I'm good to go home. I'm sorry. And all that kind of
Right.
stuff that would work.
Because at that point, just go, hey,
you
you
were
know
white.
what?
Right.
Keep the vehicle in the parking lot. Like, I know he was in the drive-through itself, so they'd have to park the vehicle. Just have an officer park the
Vehicle was already parked.
Was it?
He pulled they came up to him. He was blocking traffic. That's the
Okay.
whole reason why police were called in the first place. And they said, "Sir, can you please take your car and park over there?" And he did.
Okay.
So the car was out of the way already.
So the car's already out of the way. Then the easiest thing to do would be, look, we're going to take you home. We're going to get you something to eat. Because, like, here's my reason. If you can take a guy who just did a shooting at a church to a Burger King to get a fucking meal, you can take a sleepy person in a parking lot to get a meal, and then
Just drive him home.
Just drive
Call
him
a
home.
family member to come get
yeah.
him. Like,
Drive them home, and you know what? If you desperately need to, just you've got that raging. This is gonna get bad, but if you've just got that raging boner to lay down the law, then just take him home and give him a court summons afterwards. Like, hey, we're gonna have to talk about this later.
Right.
But you're gonna get your food. You're gonna go home. You can get your vehicle tomorrow. Get an Uber to get it. Just don't drink. You did the drink, you were out here, so, you know, you're going to get in trouble for that, but it didn't need to turn into, we're going to take you in and you're going to die.
Right. And then on top of that, like, as far as whether there's, in addition, on top of there's no need to shoot. If they're
he's running away.
laying down, yeah, he's running away. They have his car. Presumably they have his license. There's no need to do anything else. It's like, okay, well, we have your car. What are you going to do?
And if one civilian is able to manhandle, if one drunk civilian, as they,
Right.
you know, are claiming he's so inebriated, one drunk civilian is able to manhandle two cops and disarm him of his taser,
yeah,
why are you on the police force? Why are you a cop?
right. So, all in all, so that's the event that took place. Now the response to it has been.
Right.
So what happened?
BT
So-
BT Dubs.
That night, yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick
Yeah.
aside before we get into that, BT Dubs. I've been looking up the effects of tasers on people who have pacemakers, and there's no way for a police officer to know if somebody actually has a pacemaker,
Oh, of
and
course.
it is not currently known to what effect a taser disrupts a pacemaker, but we know that it does in fact have a negative effect on the pacemaker, but the effects have not been studied in full because I guess we haven't tased enough people with them, I guess. So just throwing that out there, if any police officer wants to bring the argument to me, this is a non-lethal weapon, I will say bullshit. You don't have x-ray vision. You can't tell that somebody has a pacemaker. You can't tell what illnesses they may or may not have. And in response to other less than lethal or non-lethal things, Sarah Grossman was killed and she did not in fact have asthma. So anyway, okay, now go on. Diatribe over.
So, with
So
go ahead.
So following the shooting, you know, the community was outraged. The Wendy's was burned down that night. Protesters
By
took
who?
to
Did
the
you see the
highway.
video?
Yeah, I
Of
did.
the
I
woman
did see
who-
the video.
okay.
Yeah.
That's important to know, though, because
so
that's
it's hard to say if it was protesters or not. I'm
No.
on the fence
There's-
that it wasn't protesters.
There's a video. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. K-Peeps, go ahead, because I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that, and it goes back to what Shamar said earlier about the kind of the protests we bring about. Like, we don't know if she's a protester or not, but claiming the narrative of whatever protests we're able to hold is very important because we know the news is going to turn this into, well, the protesters did this. We don't know, as we stated earlier, if this white woman was a protester, an agitator, an infiltrator, undercover. We have no idea. All we know is that there's clear video image of her putting a match, a lighter, something within Wendy's, and then we know the rest.
Right. So, and then the protests got like surrounded this Wendy's.
Hmm.
Um,
They
do we
took
know
to
if
the
did the
highway
Wendy's
after
actually
that.
make the call? Do we know that, or did?
I got word that the employees inside the Wendy's were the ones who
Okay.
called the
I
police.
also know from one of my friends who was out there at the Wendy's when this was going on. After the Wendy's was set on fire, it was close to like a BP gas station. So they were trying to call the fire department to make sure that there wasn't this huge explosion due to the Wendy's and the gas station being
Oh
in
yeah, I
close
heard about
proximity.
that. Yeah.
And that also leads to me saying that one of my friend who was also there with the protesters, she said that it got to the point where the police officers had basically blocked some of the streets she had come down. So there was only one street protesters, agitators, whoever was out there at the Wendy's could come in and out of at that point. So that means you have, let's say, at least 1,000 people only have one block to run in and out of. So at one point there was a stampede, she said. So just thinking about how these tactics were made, if there's only one street to get in and out of for the protesters, what if the firefighters couldn't get there if there was an explosion added on to the fire?
Right.
Just thinking about this in different angles and aspects.
Has there been a response from the Atlanta government? Has Lance Bottoms said anything about it, or?
People tried to contact her the night of the Wendy's being on fire, and there was a lot of discussion and debate if she should go out there and say something on the news and bring awareness to it, but also coming from somebody who has been trying to do community organization, and we've been trying to get in rooms with her. The protesters who want their voices to be heard, not infiltrators, not instigators, they don't trust her. She has not said anything or come to any of us to talk about why we're grieving, why we want to see reallocation or abolishment of certain demands. And to see her, in my opinion, if I would have seen Mayor Bottoms come on just for the Wendy's being on fire, it would have pissed me off even more, because this is the first time we've heard you say anything about what's going on, and you're still not talking to the voices that are wanting to be heard. So people reached out to her the night that the Wendy's was on fire, but as we know, she has not spoken up about it. I'm not sure if she addressed it on the...
Erica Shields resigned. Erica Shields, the police chief.
Right.
And imagine there's plenty of heat on her right now, and she just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
I saw it as a coward's move.
Well,
because it was like,
and also, just because she's resigned doesn't mean that she's not still on the payroll. Just to make that clear. So she can still get
yeah, that's right,
paid.
Because the cops that did the cops that left that one area, the 29, and they were still on payroll. They just weren't on SWAT team specifically.
Right.
Thank you. So even though she resigned, to me it just feels like a social stunt. I'm just going to put it out there. So you resigned to make it seem like, okay, I don't have to deal with the heat, but we know that you're still on payroll. You can still essentially do things, get some work done from wherever you're at. That's why we want her to be terminated. I know that we read somewhere that pension is automatically taken away from police officers if they're fired. So if she resigned, how does that work as well? Because to me, that's not.
God.
There's not a consequence for it. It's just you got to leave.
Right.
Because at that
she
point,
just got to exit the
penny.
conversation.
She got to leave.
She was paying some lip service to protesters initially. She was saying that, we want to have...
the very first night that me and Caitlin were both out there, she marched herself, armed in arm with her two officers into the middle of the protests and gave some type of interview, some type of video that was basically police propaganda. And then it's like 3 weeks later, you want to resign when things hit the fan. And to Mayor Bottoms, it's like she has said, phrases like, she wants us to articulate more than our anger, but you are not getting in rooms with anybody. She then said, I want to say yesterday at the town hall, CNN town hall, that she said up until Friday, which is when Rayshard Brooks got killed, she said up until Friday, she thought Atlanta had been doing it right.
What?
And it's just like...
She's just
following.
not
See, it's like, what?
she's not in sync.
My
with-
reaction was the same as your phone just there.
You know, she just
At
gets
this
on
point, we're
TV and she's not in sync. She gets on TV and says one thing to cater to her audience and who she wants to cater to.
She said,
But us on the ground, it's like, this is not the case.
I want to get that clear. She said that she wanted you to communicate more than anger.
Yes.
Like,
So
as
she went
speaking
to
of somebody who went to your protest,
Mhm.
right? The messages that you guys were putting out were not angry.
Right.
There was some anger,
of course.
but it was being transferred into a positive message of solution-oriented communication,
Right.
which is like, great. That's not communicating in anger. That's just trying to build solutions and move forward. It's not
I
that
think that adds.
they can't delegitimize the anger at the same time though. Like there's gonna be
Exactly.
anger, but
And I
there's
feel-
definitely more than anger being communicated. Go ahead.
Sorry, I know. I was like thinking about everything you were saying. I feel like at this point, it's kind of, it goes to show you what her priorities are, because the fact that you're telling us how we should respond to you silencing us or not even coming to the table to have a discussion is irritating and is also taking away from what the real issue is in the first place. We want our demands to be met, whether it's reallocation or abolishing certain things. And her taking the time out to talk about how we're going about it is taking away from the message itself. And that also goes to show you how she's feeding into whatever narrative she wants people to believe. Because I feel like her just dismissing us or saying that we're angry or whatever, it's just, if you would talk to us, you would hear us. But since you don't, you wouldn't know.
Right. Did we
Uh-oh.
lost Shamar? Now he's back.
Sorry, Mark.
Oh, there we go.
That's just really frustrating, and I'm hearing similar things in the chat. The Real Lock, who I actually had on stream a few days ago during the fundraising, was mentioning that he's actually been at the Atlanta protest as well, and talked directly to her, and she did a lot of question dodging. Apparently,
How did he manage to get that?
Yeah, how did he even get to her?
Yeah.
that would be something to ask him, but he's listening into the show, so I'm sure he'll be able to respond.
Please let us know. We need his
Yeah,
plan.
Also, by the way, speaking of, I have been dropping the Cash App to y'all's organization in the chat. I'm going to do it again and announce it that I'm doing it right now. So,
Thank you.
let's see.
Oh, he said to Shields. Not
Shields,
to,
okay.
Oh, to Shields. Oh, okay.
Oh, to Shield.
Yeah. Yeah, Bottoms ain't going. She ain't going.
She's not out. on
That
the
Bottoms
street.
walked out and gave a speech.
Yeah, she literally got on her megaphone and was like, "I want us to articulate more than our anger." Okay, girl. But
As
you
opposed
haven't
to
ring my phone.
as opposed to telling people to articulate more than their anger, mayhap there's a better way to phrase that, an infinitely better way to phrase that. And I think it would be something more like this. We understand that you're angry. You have every reason to be angry. Let's talk solutions.
Mhm.
That instantly, you recognize why people are feeling. You recognize that people are feeling the way that they do. You recognize why they're feeling the way that they do, and now you're looking for a way that you could try to help, as opposed to language like what you just pointed out, which is language that throws the onus on the victims.
Right.
Articulate more than your anger. I'm gonna be that guy that rephrases that to make it sound probably way worse than it is. But at least if somebody in the audience doesn't understand why this is a problem, this will maybe make a lot more sense.
Please.
It is like, let's say that you have a domestic abuse victim. They have a black eye. They're crying, and you are trying to get information from them so that you can get the abusive husband. This is really bad considering the stats on spousal abuse with police. So maybe this was not the best one, but it's where we are right now. You don't look at that person and go, "You're gonna have to do something other than cry."
Like,
That is not how you handle that.
Right. That's very triggering.
But when you frame it like that, suddenly everything that they've said is put into a different perspective. It's like, oh yeah, no, they're saying really fucking shitty things to people who are upset.
Mhm.
So how do you respond to that from a protest standpoint? It's just, I mean, obviously you're holding more demonstrations. What's going to be going on? Like, what's up next?
Well, I mean, from there, it's just you. I hate to say get more aggressive, but our strategy has to get more aggressive. We have to meet her where she is and make her talk to us, make her come outside. You know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a very uphill battle. But you have to kind of just ramp up your efforts a little bit. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking for next.
And also to add on to that, we always work through this with like, what are our short-term goals and what are our long-term goals, as we mentioned before, because Mayor Bottoms is only one person in this whole system. And yes, it starts with obviously where you live and, you know, doing little things like that, signing petitions, voting, trying to create these meetings. But even if we get through to Mayor Bottoms, there's still more work to be done. So we do set up, okay, here's some reallocation demands, here's some demands of getting rid of the entire police department if that's defunding it. We really do try to come up with ways that, okay, here's a short-term solution that will get us to the long-term goal. So I just think that what Shamar said is so important. Regardless if it's short-term action or a long-term goal, we have to continue to be more aggressive, because clearly that's the only message that people are willing to listen to, or it even gets more awareness. We see that with what happened in Atlanta with Wendy's being caught on fire. It's on national news now. But a peaceful protest like ours, even if it does bring thousands of people in, it's not
going to be the
zero
it's not going to be the same.
Zero coverage.
It's not.
I think
it's just not.
Before this, it seemed like Atlanta had gotten out of the news cycle for the most part in favor of other cities, like I think it's Seattle that Cyrus mentioned a second ago.
Is
that right?
Chop and Chaz are happening there.
So I wasn't sure if it was Seattle or Portland. Portland's had some events going on as well, but with like Atlanta had several peaceful protests. There hadn't been so much in the way of looting and rioting and all that jazz that has been driving the national conversation. And then it's like the cameras start turning away from peaceful demonstration, and then all of a sudden, you know, Wendy's is on fire. That camera swoop right back. It's like, oh look, we got to check this out now. And it's like, well, you've been ignoring us for like, you know, a week now.
Right.
That brings up a really awkward point, Ocean.
Right.
So this is going to sound really awkward, and this is not me coming out in favor of anything.
Let's put out like 27 caveats, sir.
But it's really awkward to hear these two phrases. That's not the right way to protest. Do it peacefully. We won't pay attention to you unless you're violent.
Right.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. Hold up. I heard Stonewall in the background, and I don't know why the fuck that happened. That's a really... So, that's not me trying to say, yes, go out and riot. No, that's me going... It's really weird with the way that our media is built. Oh my god, I just realized that 20 to 25 years ago, we got rid of the news standards that said that you have to have unbiased news. Which means that you can have corporations fighting each other. And why does everything come back to capitalism? Ocean, please stop me.
Bread down.
Put the bread down.
Put the bread.
He's got a baguette
down.
He's got a baguette, and there's other things the French came up with that are really useful for situations like this.
Something. Let them eat.
Anyway, no, but my point is that it's really weird to hear the narrative. Out the one hand, this is the right way to protest, do it this way. And then on the other hand, you see that effectively doing it that way, the media turns its eyes away from you. And then it's like...
To piggyback on that, Kaepernick came up with a really good way of forcing the cameras onto the situation by kneeling during the national anthem. It was a peaceful way of doing it. Cameras were there.
Ocean, not that way.
It forced the... Okay, fine.
Not that way.
Too violent, I guess.
You're not allowed to protest that way.
I don't know.
Right. I've seen that
it
meme.
You your job.
I've seen that meme where it's just, you need to protest the right way. Not that way. Not that way. Not that way. Not that way.
Whatever way it is, you can't do it.
And it's like, if you can't protest, okay, so now what? let's say everybody stops protesting. We just go about business as usual, trying to get these meetings. We've been trying to meet with her for weeks now. And really, even if peaceful protest doesn't get as much attention as violent, more radical protest, I guess, as you could say, that's always something I
Property
ask people
violence
who
is
say,
the way that I want to put it.
Oh, that also you just
property.
triggered something else I remembered. When we were talking about, I know I just jumped 2
Go for
points,
it.
but this is really important as well. With the police officers saying that they are supposed to protect property, what does that teach us in our society? That property is more important than human beings. And that goes back to the issue we're already having at hand. Like,
that makes
it just
if property
comes full circle.
if property is more valuable than people, then destruction of property becomes a legitimate form of protest.
Exactly.
Just throwing that out there. Somebody who goes, that's not the right way to do it. Actually, in capitalist America,
That's pretty much the only way to do it. You have to get you have to get some attention on you in some way. You can follow that up.
But that's not saying that YCBL is about to go burn down buildings.
No,
Like that.
this is strictly a
understand. Yeah, like we understand the violence. We understand the language and the feelings of the violence. So, I just think that like that in itself, though, is still not going to get us in the room. So It's like we have to find a way to ramp up our efforts that is like tiptoeing the line, but not crossing the line, but also speaking the language of the people who we are trying to reach. Because we can sit here and speak our jargon and our language all we want, but they're still not going to hear that. So it's like, again, it's an uphill battle, but I think just the next step is figuring out how to ramp up stuff.
As soon as you start doing anything that is even related to violence in any way whatsoever, it's even towards property. Like we're not talking about violence towards people in any case. We're just talking about violence towards property at this point, like rioting or whatever.
Or you just break a lamp pole.
All of a sudden, you're providing like that while you get the camera on you. You provide now excuses for people not to have the conversation with you and those and powers that be. So Lance Bottoms can say, well, they're doing this, therefore they can't be part of the conversation that I'm trying to avoid as long as the camera's away.
That you're trying to avoid, right?
There's a term for that, Ocean. And it's a term that anybody who's been in an abusive relationship understands very well. That is called a double bind.
Oh, yeah.
You effectively must do this one thing to get attention, but if you do this one thing to get attention, it delegitimizes you.
Right.
Either way.
The cycle of trauma.
And if yes, that's exactly what it is. It is if you've been to therapy, or if you've talked with somebody who has studied human psychiatry, this is a tactic that is commonly used or employed by abusers in order to keep people dependent on them, because what an abuser wants is dependency. So,
so you're saying the police are abusers?
Ocean, they can rape in 35 states and they don't have to protect the citizenry, and they violated the Geneva Convention on 5 separate accounts. What do you think?
Hold on a second, I need to go lick a boot to get that. Hold on.
Leather goods are edible. But the point is that at the end of the day, why an abuser always wants control of a victim for a reason. Now, what reason would there be for an abuser, in this case, our state, not just Atlanta, but the United States as it stands, what reason would there be for an abuser to want to keep control over its victims? And I think if you can answer that, you start to unravel some of their power.
Mm-hmm. You can keep a group oppressed. It's a simple answer. If you can keep them in fear, if you can keep killing a group of people, they're not going to be here anymore. I mean, and yes, that's simple terms, but it's all connected. You're killing us. We don't make enough money especially being a woman and being Black. It's just, I'm jumping to capitalism, all these other things, but it's all connected, because it's like you can't talk about racism without talking about capitalism. You just cannot.
Yes, this is what we call intersectionality.
I feel like that's why Right. That's why we always go back to, okay, we're talking about money, we're talking about how it looks to the public. All of it is connected, and there's people who want to ignore certain parts, and that's why I feel like the message isn't coming across as clearly to some versus others.
Right.
So
There's a lot of times go ahead.
A question was just asked in the chat. How long until police buy nukes as methods of crowd control? I have some bad news for you. Actually, I'm sorry. I have some really bad news for you. The police have been allowed to bomb citizens since 1985. It happened in Philadelphia. Not nuclear, mind you, but police are allowed to bomb citizens. That's a thing that's happened.
Multiple.
I didn't know that.
So
I didn't know about that either.
it was a drug bust.
Oh.
Now, for anybody who doesn't know, let's have a fun history lesson on Nixon real quick. Nixon's aide was very, very vocal about the fact that the war on drugs was actually a race war.
Oh.
He made his aide made the point that if you could connect cocaine to black people and marijuana to Mexicans, you could legally have a race war against minorities, but under the veil of it's against drugs. This is also one of the reasons why the United States infiltrated what we now know as the Bloods and the Crips and supplied them with the drugs in order to actually begin their war with one another, because that delegitimized them as political organizations.
It was also infiltration with the Black Panthers as well.
Yep.
That's one of the reasons why they waned at the end. It's because the FBI decided to just start mulling the whole way through.
This is so when K-Peeps brought up the point, it's all connected here. Yeah. Yes, it is. And everybody that I've seen people who respond to some of my posts on Facebook about this, who will go, well, no, the issue is too much power for the police. It's unjust power. That's the issue. It's not race. And I'm just sitting here going, it can be both.
Right.
It can be both.
It can't be one without the other.
Right. That they're intertwined.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is
wow. You really schooled us on the war on drugs, because I remember seriously, because that was something that I remember watching in the documentary 13th. It's on Netflix. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of people have Netflix, but it goes deeper into details about his campaign and talking about how one of his campaign managers was saying how, this is after the civil rights movement, so they have a video recording. I can't remember the campaign manager's name for Nixon, but he basically was saying behind closed door, and you can watch the documentary because I remember this part specifically. He stated, no longer can you say the N-word, so you start calling them criminals, thugs, and creating this kind of language that places them within the system to become whatever they say that.
Yeah, the birth of the innuendo.
Mm-hmm. So it does talk about how this is something that is not new. It's definitely based off history. There's definitely a bunch of intersectionality between racism, capitalism. So the fact that I'm just going to stop there.
Go ahead.
Hey, now you know how I feel. But spotlight's on you. If you have a point to make, go ahead and make it. Stage is yours.
I feel like I could go on, but somebody else hop in. Just feel free.
So it is that self-consciousness that tells me that whatever you want to say is probably very important to you personally. If that is the case, now is probably the time to say it.
Yeah,
I feel like sometimes I get in this, especially now more than ever. It's like you get to a point where with you guys, we're all kind of on the same page. We're adding to the conversation, and the message is not getting through to the people who don't want to hear clearly. So I feel like having these conversations is very important, but I get discouraged because I'm like, there's still a world of people who ignorance feels like bliss to them. And that's where I just stop, and it's kind of overwhelming because I'm like, these are things that are so easy for us to understand. What is the disconnect in these other people? Is it empathy? Is it the fact that they don't have the education? Is it the fact that they lack the experience of being around minorities of people? Maybe it's a combination of all three, but it's just, it can be too much sometimes.
Shamar, do you have any comments on that? I want to give you the opportunity first.
I mean, in this field of work, in this line of work, it can get very, very, very tiring very, very quickly. And I feel for everything that she's saying. I think in that, it's just important to know our goal and to know that this is a long fight, and I keep saying it's an uphill battle, but it's the truth. And until we get to the top of the hill, we can't stop.
Right.
Agreed. I can give. I don't know as much about Ocean's particular journey where this is concerned, but I can give a little bit of my perspective on what K Peeps was saying. So for the first 18 years of my life, I grew up as the one white kid in the drug neighborhood. Montclair, Pensacola, if you ever have a chance to go there, it is a heavily gentrified area. Like, there's literally a divide where there's the old white folks, and then after that, it's just the poor neighborhood, and it's just everybody's black or Mexican, and there's maybe one or two white people, and that's basically it. I grew up in that environment, so I got introduced to all of that very early, but I also grew up very conservative. Obviously, I'm not anymore.
He had a slight shift.
Just a slight one.
Yeah.
So the issue that I found, it's an issue that I had as a kid, and I recognize this from when I was a kid because I actually took an elections class during the first Bush election. I was in middle school, and they actually had that as a class at Brown Barge. One of the things that I remember very vividly from that time is a lot of what's called thinking in binaries. And I think this is the heart of a lot of these issues. So thinking in binaries is thinking that something either is or it isn't. Thinking that something is either racist or it's not. Thinking that something is either Islamophobic or it's not. Something is either good or it's bad. Most of the conservative people who I have engaged with through the course of all of this have had this problem of thinking in binaries, where you're either racist or you're not, would be the big example here. What they seem to fail to realize, and I think if you bring it up to them in this way, you can make a little bit of headway sometimes.
There can be a gradient instead.
There can be a gradient. For instance, you can get them to agree that it is racist to don a Ku Klux Klan hood and begin burning crosses in the street. That it's easy to get somebody to agree that that's racist. It might be a little harder, but it's still doable to get them to agree that stepping onto the other side of the street because the person approaching you on your side is black is racist, because there's a self-defense mechanism that kicks in. This person is dangerous. Well, why do you consider them dangerous?
What's the inference?
It's because you have a bias against them because they are black. It happens a lot. I grew up in a black neighborhood. I've seen this a lot. I've done it a lot. And you can sometimes get them to budge on that position, that is a racist thing to do because it's based on racist biases. Now, does it outwardly affect or threaten a black person the same way that the Ku Klux Klan head does? No. But is it still a racist act? Yes. And if you can get them to agree to that, which is not always easy, but if you can...
You can start talking about in between.
Yeah, you can start talking about this gradient issue, because you can go, okay, you agree that these two things are both racist. You might say that you're not racist, but you might say you engage in this action here that you just agreed is racist.
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe you can stop thinking either I'm a racist or I'm not. You can start thinking, what biases do I have that might be racist? That's the other thing, is that people tend to internalize these things a lot. They're either a bigot or they're not. They're a racist or they're not. Everybody has racial biases. Everyone. It is a matter of how you grow up. Most of the time you are fed stereotypes about people who do not look like you. I have stereotypes about Asians. I have stereotypes about black people. I have stereotypes about people who look like Ocean. That just made Ocean.
Right.
But
people look at me and they tend to think skinhead, to be honest with you.
Which,
like, that's the thing.
Funny you say that. There's actually a skinhead organization that is both far left and incredibly pro BLM. It is called Sharp.
I didn't know about
Write
this.
that down. Write that down.
Right.
It's an acronym. They're called
up.
Sharp. But another fun. There's also an organization of rednecks called Redneck Revolt that is also far left and pro-racial.
Oh yeah,
equality.
it's the socialist rednecks.
Yes,
That's
that you could also that you could also get into. A lot of their arguments end up boiling down to
I don't know
this.
about that one.
A lot of their
Is
arguments end up boiling down to this. Hey guys, why did we end up souping up cars in the first place? Oh yeah, to dodge cops. Maybe we have a lot more in this than we think. So, but the reason that
that's the whole I come from backwoods mountains, right? And it's like you say redneck. It's like, oh yeah, my background a little bit. So, but like the tradition in the mountains was like it's the area where the whiskey runners were.
Yes,
and
the whiskey running is what birthed NASCAR.
Right, and it's like, oh okay.
I feel like I'm
driving
in school,
driving out here in the mountains. Right. That's why it's like evading the cops and all that. It's okay, yeah, cool, yeah, fight the power. Wait a minute. Oh,
oops! It's like, oops! Wait, I'm not on the right side anymore.
Right.
But the reason that I brought up the bias is getting somebody to agree that they have a set of biases. If they have any knowledge of psychology, these would be called schemas. Most of them you can just say biases. Getting them to agree that they have these biases can start that conversation. Just go, hey, what biases do you maybe have against particular groups? What do you think when I say Islam? And if they start saying things that are pertained more to, say, ISIS, then like your Joe Schmo down the street who they didn't even know was Islamic until they asked.
Right.
That's when you start getting those. You can get those conversations in and get people to be introspective. That's the biggest thing, is getting people to stop being defensive and start being introspective, which is very hard to do in the current political environment because people are very quick to go.
Everybody wants to dig in their heels.
Everybody's like,
after the conversation, they go back to their confirmation biases because of algorithms on social media.
I think everyone is just so to your point of like, you know, the environment that you grow up in, people get stuck in that. You know, it's like when you grow up in it, it becomes your being, and if you're not exposed to other, I guess, outlets, if you will, or just other opportunities to expand your perspective, then you just get, like you say, ignorance feels bliss.
Yeah, and it's hard to unlearn biases.
Right.
It's hard to even know you have them in the first place. Usually somebody has to explain them to you. When I was a conservative Christian, I had to have the fact that I was homophobic explained to me. It had to be delivered to me on a plate by a person who I knew and trusted for me to even begin that journey. And even that one was like a 3-year long walk. So it's not
then
easy.
You have to make a choice yourself. Once you have the knowledge, you have to make the choice to yourself to be like, all right, well, I'm not going to be an asshole anymore.
Correct. And now, Ocean, do you have anything to say about that?
I don't know, I think you covered it. I just kind of want to make the addition on the end about whiskey running and the algorithm trap. Because I guess to make the point about the algorithm trap, I think that a lot of times when you try to have these conversations with people, it's rough because what'll happen is I've used to spend some time talking to people and like alt-right and kind of moving them a little bit out of that. And one of the things that I'd find would happen is that after the conversation, somebody would come back to me almost immediately and send me an article that they found on their feed, because the algorithm to Twitter, Facebook, especially Facebook, Jesus, will spin your confirmation biases and assault them. And it'll make you just kind of live there. So as soon you have to structure the conversation in such a way that after they go back to social media and they're bombarded again with stuff that matches their personal biases, they're going to question those things. And it's in a world where we're not teaching reasoning courses, that can be
or media literacy.
Difficult. Right.
It can be pretty hard. That said, I need to interject for something very important real quick.
Go for it.
K-Peeps or Shamar, either one of you who have access to this, we have a friend from across the pond who wants to donate to your Cash App, but apparently that is region locked. Is there a way?
Is there another way to send
Is there
money?
a way they can send you something via PayPal or otherwise that they're able to actually send across the pond from? Because Cash App is not allowing them to actually send anything to you.
Do other apps like Venmo and Zelle, are those region?
Venmo is owned by PayPal, so Venmo might not be region locked. If you have a Venmo code that I can spam in the chat real quick, they can give it a try and we can get an update on that. Yeah, I just got a confirmation that I needed to send that through to get some funding your way.
Okay, give me
chat,
1 second.
you.
Also, chat, I want you guys to help me out over there in the chat. I want you guys to spam. Take this, take it in the chat, copy paste it, and just post it over and over. Like whenever we talk about like H in the chat, like give me an H.
Give me an
Do
H
that.
if you're going to
Do
listen
that.
to Ocean.
Don't do that because then there won't be any H's. But copy the message that I just put in the chat. That's their Cash App, and just spam it for us so that everybody is aware that that's their Cash App. If anybody wants to donate to their organization, help them out, money goes a long way in these kind of situations for basic supplies, even stuff that's like, think of all the things that you might need in order to just even lead a protest. The purchase of a megaphone, dealing with permits and all this other crazy shit.
Without a single large piece of equipment, no megaphones, no batteries for your phone for charging, nothing like that. It will take you, at the very least, $15 as an individual to be prepared. This is getting your mask. This is being prepared with plenty of water, potentially some Gatorades for electrolytes, and granola bars and other things for yourself. That's going to be $15 investment on its own.
And like, I guess talk a little bit about where the costs go, because when I went to y'all's event, y'all had like some food set up. There were supply runners. There was like an SUV would park on the side of the road ahead of the march, and somebody would open up the back, and there'd be masks, there'd be basic food, there'd be some bottled water, but not just bottled water in a package, but somebody would pull out a cooler with ice in it. So I guess talk a little bit about that, like just the simple logistics of it.
So we've been fortunate. Sorry, my battery's like running out, so it keeps warning me.
Because I'm
but
and you keep talking like it's your screen will go black. I'm like, hello.
I'm sorry that some of the longevity is also my fault, because I have a tendency of going on tirades every once in a while. I apologize for that.
Yeah, go ahead, Shamar.
But so a lot of things kind of just come about with our protests. We have people reaching out to us saying, can we be on a checkpoint on the route? We have people they're saying, we're a group called Feed the Protesters. We're just going to come and set up food. And most of the donations that we get, we literally just purchase it for snacks, water, masks, and anything of that nature that our protesters will need, just to be safe throughout the demonstration. But a lot of things just kind of come to us. People want to help out as much as they can, and much of that is just handing out waters and snacks along the route, because a lot of people either can't be in the streets physically, or are just unsafe or think it's unsafe, and they don't want to risk themselves that way, which is perfectly fine. But helping out how you can is how, or help people finding ways to help out how they can, which is being on these checkpoints, is how we've kind of allowed that. Or not allowed, but the kind of the structure and organization of the protest.
I guess real quick, let's Cirrus.
Yes.
Check the chat.
Okay.
Just want to look at things. Yeah.
I'd say
so. It's supposed to be done like super sly, but I was just like, hey, do we want to wrap up, because we're hitting about that hour and a half. So I do want to.
Understandable. I'm trying to do 1,000 things at once. I am so sorry.
Real quick, we got a couple of questions in the chat. If you guys want to go ahead and post some, we can
also got
shoot some of those
chats. Got a couple
of
super
go
chats
ahead
we
and
need to get into real quick.
Read the super chats. We'll ask some questions, and then we'll let you guys shill some of the social media, and we'll talk about that Cash App again, because these things require funding. There's a reason.
Right. They do.
There's a reason why I've been fundraising.
Trying to protest
for
in a capitalist economy. Something. Put down the bread. All right, go ahead, sirs.
Put down the. But we need to literally seize capital to protest, Ocean. God damn it.
Seize the means of protesting. Go ahead.
Okay, so the first super chat we have is from Real Lock, $2. I is professional YouTuber, because I have tech gremlins, and they're all Ocean's fault, but apparently they cut into my professionalism.
My pagan ass is definitely pissing off all the technology.
Who has a dog?
That's just what's going on. And yep, there's a pupper.
That's me. Hold on.
Oh.
It's this one.
Oh.
She's a good bean, but she is loud. Okay. The next one we have is again from Real Lock because apparently he doesn't get tired of throwing money at me.
Is it
$2, and the courts decide to not strike it down. That was about the qualified immunity from earlier. $2 from Orlicera, or €2 from Orlicerif. I cannot stress enough that tear gas is bad. Please protect yourself. There was mention around that time to do what Hong Kong has been doing, and that is to delegate some of your water supply and traffic cones to the destruction of tear gas. If you happen to have the suit up to go near a tear gas canister while it is going, put a cone on it, drop water on it, smother the whole damn thing. Only if you are equipped to do so, not if you're not. Jake 4D for $2. Police aren't required to protect, then I don't need them. Well, what a concept! The Real Lock for $5. Bottoms came out to the protest and gave a speech, but didn't talk to any of the protesters.
Right.
Yep. Jake 4D, again, $2. The right way is the one that delivers change. Yeah.
Not anything else to add to that.
What the craft for $5. It may be better for people to donate rather than send supplies. I've seen a few instances of supplies getting confiscated. Not just that.
The poisoning thing.
Yes, I have to stress this now that I'm thinking about it right now. This happened in was it Ohio? I think it was Ohio,
but it's been in multiple cities.
The first instances I saw of this were in Ohio, where the water that had been donated was laced with antifreeze. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. The way, and this is going to be very graphic, if anybody here is an animal lover, I am very sorry, but I am going to have to stress this. The way that my neighbors killed my dog when I was younger was by feeding it antifreeze. It literally crystallized its liver. Now, why the fuck would you want to do something like that to another human being? Could it be potentially that you're, I don't know, evil? Anyway, I will just say I'm an advocate for self-defense, and if you see anybody with a can of antifreeze anywhere, or a bottle of antifreeze anywhere near a water supply, there is an argument about exactly how many bones they can have unbroken by the end of your engagement. Meredith Naveen for the $2.
No comment as to how it happened or anything like that. But
I have yet to send you the customary $20 to feck YouTube. Well, thank you very much, Mero. And then $9.99 from Jack Fisher. What is the link for international viewers? Link. Oh, yes, the
Venmo.
Venmo link. If you have gotten the Venmo link sorted out yet.
Yeah, I sent it to you in the chat.
Excellent. Let me.
Is that the Twitter chat, or you put in the side chat over here?
I got it over here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Here is the link for international viewers. And in fact, actually, if anybody wants to click that link and then spam that link as well, just so it guaranteed is there and will not be... I'm taking Ocean strategy.
Dropping it. Yeah, exactly. No, if you put it in there 37 times, people will probably see it.
At least that's the hope. So hopefully that will be a link that international viewers can
And we'll be
use
putting
to
it in the
support.
description of the video if you guys are watching this after the show. So that, like, you know, this will be after the show. This will be taken down. We'll be editing it and then uploading it separately. And these links will be in the description of the video. And if they're not, I will drive over to Cyrus's house and yell at him.
Given proximity, both of you can do the exact same thing. I'm not gonna lie, we could literally all like meet up for Wahoo at some point.
That sounds fun.
I love that. Right.
Waha is the sacred place.
Right.
This is the truce territory. Everybody can agree on Wahoo.
I think what is it that we were making, Cyrus, that if you die in Georgia, you respawn at the most recent Waffle House you went to?
I'm sure they've probably made an anime about that at some point. Oh yeah, they did. It's called ReZero.
Cyrus is making the anime joke. What's an anime, Cyrus? I need to anyway. So, with that, let's have our. Is there's any questions in the chat? Wasn't bumping through.
There was another super chat from Jake 4D. You have no
Go for it.
empathy for those you do not know. As your familiarity grows, so does your empathy. Most humans think about people we do not know. We have basic empathy for those we do not know. Well, we have only basic empathy for those we do not know, I think is the long and short of that one. Mero says, I also have to teach you how to say my name. I'm fairly certain that sounds like a threat. I will teach you to say my name. Jack Fisher said, app not available in your region.
Right. We're going to have to come up with a...
Okay.
You guys might need a PayPal link. So just
We'll
get that over to us, and we'll make sure that our viewers can get a handle on it, so we can get you guys some international cash. That being said, let's have you guys shill yourselves, K-Peeps. Let's go ahead and put you out there. What social media do you want to share?
I'll share my Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is KAIT. Well, I feel like I can drop it in the comments.
Yeah. Go ahead and drop it in there.
I actually have the editor open right now. I opened up a second stream window, so I have the ability to actually use my editor right now.
Okay.
So if you want to drop me a link, I can actually put it in the description here.
Okay, because I'm like, I don't know what that
Okay.
means.
Things are happening
At
that
least you were
involve
honest.
technology.
There is a question to you
And-
from Real Lock, which is a question for the organizers. Do you need volunteers and the like? He's been running around bringing water to people and volunteering as a medic.
Medic.
that would be
We do.
amazing.
We try to have a
Absolutely.
medic at each protest that we have. That's something that has been kind of hard to see who can lend their time, because when they're actually saving lives, and then they come out and protest, it can be kind of tiring. So any medical information of people who could stay around is greatly needed.
But also make sure there's been some issues popping up with people who aren't qualified as medics offering themselves up as a medic. Be sure that you're
Sheesh.
qualified before you are offering yourself up as a medic. Have
Please,
at least a first aid course under your belt or something like that.
Yes. Please come with some certification. I mean,
However,
that's all the good
so
ones.
wait, hold on.
It's like if
Could
you're
there be
coming forward as a
somebody-
nurse or something like that, then chill. But at least
Could there be somebody who has been doing this like pro bono without any qualification for like 2 years at multiple protests, and they're just like, my qualification is the fields of war.
right.
like okay, maybe, but let's just, make sure you got some good habits.
Okay, so with the links, I'm not tech savvy at all. To copy and paste the link of your Instagram, and I know you texted it to me, but I still...
We'll put your
would-
link out. We'll put your link in the description. But if you want to just
Okay.
say your username on Instagram or something like that,
Yeah.
that'll work out just fine. And we
Okay.
want to make sure that people are getting to your organization's Instagram as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
the
our organization...
Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Our organization, I'm putting it in the YouTube chat right now. It's _YCBL_ on Instagram.
Okay, I know I've
Yeah, I've
got
got
2
it.
Instagram links in here right now,
One of them is my personal Instagram. Should be, I think.
and then the other one is the protest Instagram.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
Now,
All right.
personal
and-
one is _Don period. Do put that in.
Are you're putting that in the chat that everybody can see, right?
Yeah, the YouTube one, yeah.
Yes, okay. That's what I thought. Okay. I can do this.
Cool. Yeah, if you just want to go ahead and do that.
I can do that, yeah.
Right. 'Cause I'm like trying to
I can type.
something I can do within less than a minute. Thank you. I need a whole tutorial on YouTube to teach me how to copy and paste the link.
Technology. Don't worry, it's out to get us. It is definitely
Right.
Remember,
destroy
the
us.
meme has changed from OK Boomer to OK Bootlegger.
Damn. All right. So, any closing thoughts? We want to give the last word to y'all. So just I'll call on Shamara. Go for it, and then
Okay.
yeah.
Well, first off, thank you guys for this platform because this has been amazing to get our organization, our word out, and our message. So thank you guys so much for this opportunity. And to just the audience, I just want to say to keep fighting the good fight. Everybody has a place in the movement. Everybody has a place in this revolution. It's all about getting in where you fit and using your skills and assets to better the cause. So we have a member connection survey in our bio, in our Instagram bio. If anybody's looking to utilize those skills, we kind of filter what your asset could be to the organization. So yeah, everybody has a place, everybody has a voice, everybody has an asset to utilize. So just doing your best and doing your part to do so. This, like I keep saying, it's an uphill battle and it's going to be a long fight.
Are you looking for people in Atlanta, or are you looking for people outside of Atlanta as well to help out with the organization?
It can be outside of Atlanta as well, because we do have like different things you could do from your location, wherever you are. So anybody who just wants to get involved, like I said, we can see where your skills will fit. Trust me. So
Cool. All right, and K Peeps, you got the final
Just
word.
to add on to that, number one, I want to say thank you as well to everyone for the podcast and just taking the time to be here and listen to what we were talking about today. Shamar basically covered the bases. On Instagram, there's a Google Docs form that you can fill out if you want to get involved more. We want to say thank you for the donations, your time, energy, and effort. People just taking the time out to have conversations like that is perfect. Like he said, get in where you fit in. If you feel like you can't be protesting in the streets, but you can donate, that's awesome. Signing petitions, continue to educate yourself, continue to take action, continue to use your voice, and that's all we can really ask.
Awesome. All right,
Awesome.
I'm handing it back to you, sir. Shall we hammer it out? You need a hammer though.
Let me just get this massive.
Yes!
There it is.
All right. And I want to give a huge thank you to Shamar and K Peeps of Young Coalition for Black Liberation, Youth Coalition for Black Liberation.
yeah,
And
it's a bit of a mouthful, but
there we go. I have to like look at it every time. It is. But
It took us a week to get it right. So.
I think I've done okay in an hour. Yeah. So
You did it.
but
You did it.
underscore YCBL underscore on Instagram. So go to their Instagram, follow their Instagram, keep up with updates. If you want to get involved, shoot them a message. Get that Cash App in the chat again, and let's help these guys out. So with that, this is Hammered Out. Suris.
Thank you guys for watching. It has been a wonderful conversation thus far. I'm glad that we had the amount of audience participation that we did during this, especially from Realock, who has also been working in this area as well. So thank you for that. I'm hoping that you guys can end up meeting up at some point and maybe doing some good. That would be good. I do want to thank, personally, since Ocean already did it, but I didn't do it, I'm going to go ahead and get this in as well. Thank you, Shamar. Thank you, K-Peeps, for hopping on, lending your voice, lending your experience, lending your knowledge, and moreover, lending your hand out there in the real world. There's only so much you can do from behind a screen, which is what I've learned over the course of So, that said, if you enjoyed the stream, it will be back up again before the night is over, because if I don't do that, Ocean will actually garrote me.
Yes,
So,
I will drive over. I know where you live.
It's true, you have.
You'll have to text me your address first because I don't know where it is, but
I've actually cooked for this man before. So, that said,
he makes some mean chicken tenders.
you guys are funny.
Yeah,
if you
I'm
guys
here for
enjoyed
the
the stream,
friendship.
if you guys enjoyed the stream, please do me a huge favor. Hit the like button, share it with your friends. I'm going to be cutting this particular stream down on my end, so it's not going to be a repost as much. It's going to be the original with the live chat and everything because we had so many tech issues. So, yeah, if you guys enjoyed, please do all that fun stuff. You know YouTube's algorithm likes it. And if you didn't enjoy, you're already telling me in the comment section below. It's fine. I know you have a tiny dick. It's okay. Don't worry. So, that all said, thank you, guests, for being on. Thank you, audience, for being here and participating and donating. And I hope you all have a wonderful
Thank you for
rest
coming
of your days.
Thank you.
Thank
too.
you.
Bye, y'all.
everyone.